Hello everybody, Remedy X here. I am back after a long wait. Having a kid really sucks up a lot of your spare time, but I wanted to get a recording out. I built another deck, part of my 32 deck challenge. This one is Tameshi Reality Architect. Now, Tameshi, I'm sure you guys have seen or heard of Tameshi. If you play Legacy, apparently Tameshi sees play in Legacy. There is an infinite mana combo with him in the deck, but it doesn't necessarily just win you the game on the spot. With a couple other pieces, it will, though. Um, Overall, though, really cool deck. I want to go through it. I'm doing something different. A lot of people do the artifact, grindy, sacrifice theme stuff that you really get. I'm doing sagas because story time, you know. Um, so in case you don't know Tameshi, whenever one or more non-creature permanents are returned to your hand, draw a card. This ability only triggers once each turn. Pay X and a white. Return a land you control to its owner's hand. Return target artifact or enchantment card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. So it's artifacts or enchantments, which sagas are enchantments. They sacrifice themselves, so they put themselves in the graveyard for Tameshi. Works out pretty cool. We got just some value cards like Nurturing Pixie, Duelist of the Mind, just for some draw. A little bit of proliferate going on here with Grateful Apparition, Thrumming Bird, Knight of the White Orchid, just for those extra lands, because we really want lands, like really want lands. Scholar of New Horizons. This is a really cool one for this deck. In case you're not familiar, there's a white and 1 for Creature Human Scout 1/1. It says Scholar of New Horizons enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it. Tap, remove a counter from a permanent you control. Search your library for a plains, reveal it. If an opponent controls more lands than you, you may put that card onto the battlefield tapped. If you don't, put that card onto the battlefield, then put it into your hand. Shuffle. So this is remove a counter from one of your sagas so you can repeat the processes. Now, sagas only trigger when you add counters, not when you remove them. But it does allow you to repeat the same mode on a saga, which is really cool. But adding counters, proliferate works for adding counters for Thrumming Bird and Grateful Apparition. Reality Chip, because we do make infinite mana in here. I'll go over how we do that in a minute. Walking Atlas is part of the infinite mana combo. I'll get back to it. More proliferate with Dreamtide Whale does really good. Brazen Borrower, the petty theft mode, can return non-land permanent, so you can get your draws with it. So it's 2 mana, bounce the thing, draw a card, and then you also get a 3/3 out of it when you want to. Aromancer returns some enchantments. Mesa Enchantress, so you draw cards when you cast enchantments. Monastery Mentor, just for like a bit of a creature. We have a bit of a creature token sub-theme going on, so it makes a bunch of prowess creature tokens. Elish Norn, the Flip Saga one. So if a source an opponent controls deals damage to you or a permanent you control, that source's controller loses 2 life unless they pay 1. Pay 3, sacrifice 3 other creatures, exile it, and return it as the saga. Saga says incubate 2 5 times, then transform all incubator tokens. So it just makes 5 2/2s. And then second mode, creatures you control get 1/1 and double strike till the end of the turn. Third mode, destroy all other permanents except for artifacts, lands, and Phyrexians. Exile it and return it back as Elishnorn. So just makes a bunch of tokens, gets you a big swing out, and then does a nuke, and then comes back. And then you can repeat the process over and over again. Heliod enters, gets back an enchantment from graveyard to hand. You can transform him by paying Phyrexian in blue and 3. You may cast spells as though they had flash, which is relevant because that does trigger sagas trigger when they enter. Spells you cast cost 1 less for each card your opponents have drawn this turn. So not only can you cast things on your opponent's turn, you get a discount if they're drawing a bunch of cards. Also just a 4/6. Jorah's Familiar discounts the sagas. Keeper of the Cord If they have more creatures than you, you create a soldier. At the beginning of an opponent's end step, if they control more lands than you may put a planes from your hand onto the battlefield, then shuffle. More lands. Phyrexian Metamorph can just become copies of things. Really good. Tashar, they're all historic, so whenever you cast a historic spell, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Buys back a bunch of creatures, like Monastery Mentor is one they want to get rid of. Auramancer is a good one to loop. Brazen Borrower, because he goes back to the hand. You know, your Nurturing Pixie, your Knight of the White Orchid. My cat is getting into stuff. Honestly, Tashar might actually, maybe shouldn't be in the deck, because the creatures aren't typically too relevant, but it can be, hey, someone killed Tameshi, now I play a Saga and I get Tameshi back. So, for that, it's pretty good. Venser Shaper Savant. 4 mana 2/2. Flash. Enters the battlefield. Return target spell or permanent to its owner's hand. Also is more draw with Tameshi. Also is more interaction. Also is a flash body. Jin-Jitaxis. This one's actually really good in this deck. Ward 2. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell with mana value 3 or greater, draw a card. Pay 4, exile Jin-Jitaxis, then return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. Activate only as a sorcery, and only if you have 7 or more cards in your hand. So if we have this plus Tameshi, we can pretty easily draw 2 to 3 cards per turn. So it's not uncommon to have 7, and then you get the flip. And the, oops, not what I want, flip side. Saga, it says draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand. You have no maximum hand size for as long as you control this face, the Saga. When it transforms back, you lose your hand size cap, or you go back to hand size cap. Return all non-Phyrexian creatures to their owner's hands. So another big bounce spell. You may cast any number of spells from your hand without paying their mana cost, then exile it and return it back. So it just becomes an omniscience. It's like, draw a bunch of cards, bounce everything, and then I just redeploy everything for free. And then I flip back. Super good. Alright, Requisition Raid. Just a versatile piece of interaction, artifacts, enchantments, or 1/1 the board. Into the Flood Maw can bounce more than just creatures. If you gift a fish, which giving a fish is totally fine. Path, Swords of Plowshares, Arcane Denial, Dovin's Veto, Frantic Search, and Cryptic Command. Cryptic Command is really good. You can counter a spell, return a permanent to its owner's hand, as long as that permanent's not a creature. You also get a draw. So it's 4 mana, counter a spell, draw a card, return a permanent with Tameshi. Or it could be return, draw. Or it can be 4 mana, return a permanent, draw a card from Tameshi, and draw a card from Cryptic. It can be a 4 mana, draw 2, and bounce spell. It's real solid in here. So, alright, now we get to some of the infinite mana combos. I'll go over it now that I'm at Lotus Bloom, Lotus Petal. 0 costed artifacts, right? Walking Atlas. And where is it? Retreat to Coralhelm. So the way this works is Walking Atlas puts a land into play. Retreat to Coralhelm will untap your Walking Atlas. You activate Tameshi where X equals 0. So you just pay 1 white. You return the Lotus Petal from the graveyard to the battlefield. Or is it to hand? I think Tameshi. I should remember this. Yeah, to the battlefield. Okay, that just sounded too powerful for some reason, but yes, it's to the battlefield. You then can crack the Lotus Petal to make the white mana. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed part of it. You 0 and a white for Tameshi's ability. Return a land you control to your hand. Get the Lotus Petal back. You draw a card the first time you activate this. and then you put the petal into play. You crack the petal to make the white, you tap the Walking Atlas to put the land back into play. Retreat to Koraham will untap the Walking Atlas, and then that one land you produce infinite mana with. So just Lotus Petal or Lotus Bloom, either one will do it. Technically, if you have Grinding Station, you can do this with Soul Ring as well. So, FYI. Alright, now back to here. So that's why these two are in here, Lotus Petal and Lotus Bloom. Soul Ring, obvious. Arcane Signet, obvious. Azorius Signet, obvious. Grinding Station, what I was just talking about. You can make infinite mana, or instead of making infinite mana, you can go mana neutral, and you can just Grinding Station your opponents to death by sacking the Lotus Petal to it instead. Smuggler Copter puts some of the artifacts and enchantments in your graveyard. Just really solid piece overall. Talisman of Progress, because we need more ramp. Aerial Surveyor also gets his lands. Archaeomancer's Map gets his lands. Seal of Removal is a really cool one. When you go through your combo, you can just return all creatures your opponents control to their hands. Like, yeah, I get infinite mana. I bounce all creatures to your hands. I get all my sagas into play. Yeah, just real good. Miko's Reign of Truth Saga. Target creature gets 1/1 till the end of the turn for each artifact and enchantment you control. Exile it. That's phase 1 too. Exile it and it returns as a 1/1 with that same text. 1/1 for each artifact and enchantment you control. Can be relatively big. Can make your creatures big. These flip creature sagas are a little awkward because you kind of want your sagas to die so you can replay them with Tameshi. But there's enough things that are going to the graveyard that a couple of them are fine. Oath of Lieges, just because we want more lands. In case you don't know, 2 mana enchantment. During each player's upkeep, if that player controls fewer lands than target opponent, that player may search his or her library for a basic land card, put it into play, then that player shuffles his or her library afterwards. Just more land ramp. But it affects everyone, so it's friendly, right? Tamio meets the Story Circle. Until the next turn, whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, it gets -2, -0 to the end of the turn. Discard any number of cards, then investigate twice for each card discarded this way. Shuffle up to 3 target cards from your graveyard into your library. If you have a lot of cards in your hand, this can be really beneficial because you make a bunch of artifacts, which will make things like this a lot bigger. Honestly, it's one of the sagas that I'm not very high on. So if you end up cutting this one, I don't blame you one bit. Hopefully they just print better blue-white sagas. Sagas is typically in green. Sagas are typically like green, white, black, or... yeah, there's a couple options, so... yeah. But it's typically not blue-white, so that's why it's a little weird. Birth of Meletus. Search your library for a basic plains card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Create a 04 colorless wall, artifact creature token with Defender, and you gain 2 life. Honestly, really solid. It's a land to hand card, which is super important. You get all those land drops. It's a wall to block for you the turn you want to play Tameshi. So yeah, it's like turn 1, whatever. Turn 2, play this, get your land. Turn 3, guarantee your 3rd land drop. Make the wall, play Tameshi. Turn 4, this will crack itself. You activate Tameshi to recur it to get your next land drop. You can do some cool stuff with it. The Modern Age, draw a card, then discard a card for phase 1 and 2. Phase 3 is you exile it, return it under your battlefield transformed, and it's just a 2/3 flyer. Just the discard is actually pretty nice in this deck. Because Tameshi puts things right into play, getting to loop some of this stuff is really important sometimes. Triumph of Gerad? Whatever. I'm sorry. I don't know how to pronounce that. It says put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control with the greatest power. Target creature you control with the greatest for phase 1 and 2. Target creature you control with the greatest power gains flying, first strike, and lifelink until the end of the turn. So you just kind of build up one of your tokens typically, and then swing it in. So, Ballad of the Black Flag. Phase 1, 2, 3 says mill 3 cards, put a historic card from among them into your hand. Phase 4 says historic spells you cast this turn cost 2 less to cast. Does really good. Like, really good. This card has been very impressive from my plays. This is not a game that's going to end the turn or end the game like super quickly, by the way. This wants a little bit of a longer game, just so you're aware. History of Benalia. This is a great card in this deck. Phase 1 and 2 creates 2/2 Knight creature token with Vigilance, and then Phase 3, Knights you control get 2/1 until the end of the turn, so it makes them 4/3s with Vigilance. I've like stuck this on turn 2. Turn 3 played with like a Lotus Petal or something, or a Soul Ring. I think it's Lotus Petal. And then turn 3 played Tameshi. Turn 4, this popped, and then I recurred it to make another knight. So, and then I swung in 4. And then after a couple more turns, I now have 3 knights. And it was just really, really good. I know it's not like, oh my god, it won the game. No, but it did put a lot of pressure down relatively quickly for a white-blue deck. Gave me a decent amount of bodies, too. And it's not like that was the only things I was playing, either. So, of Herbs and Stewed Rabbit. Put a 1/1 counter on up to 1 target creature. Create a food token. Draw a card. Create a food token. Create a 1/1 halfling creature token for each food you control. This might be the only way to create foods in the deck. There might be one other, but I don't know. It was fine. It was 1/1 counter, create a food, draw a card, create a food, which is already fine. And then 2 1/1s, totally fine. Richard Quarterhelm, Helm, we talked about. It's one of the combo pieces. Smuggler Share, this just kind of does the white thing, you know. If I'm behind, I do extra stuff. So at the beginning of each end step, draw a card for each opponent who drew 2 or more cards this turn. Then create a treasure token for each opponent who had 2 or more lands enter the battlefield this turn. Works good with Oath of Legis, because now that you're giving your opponents extra land drops, you're also getting the extra land drops. But now I'm making treasures for each one, which is huge. So. Princess Takes Flight, or The Princess Takes Flight. Exile up to 1 target creature. Target creature you control gets 2/2 and gains flying until the end of the turn. Return the exiled card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So this can be a blink. Typically, it just removes a big creature off the board for a couple turns, and then you get 1 free swing in with a flying creature. It's been fine. Not been great, but there's not a lot of great white-blue sagas. Restoration of Inganjo. Search your library for basic planes. Reveal it, put it into your hand. Another one of those effects, because we really need those. You may discard a card. When you do, return target permanent with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Notice this is permanent, so it works on Sagas. Exile this card, return it, transformed. And the transform side is when it attacks or blocks, it's a 3/4 vigilance. Whenever it attacks or blocks, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token. The Blind Mice, create a 1/1 white mouse creature token. Create a token that is a copy of target token you control. Creatures you control get 1/1 and vigilance. Oh, sorry. Phase 1 is create a 1/1 mouse. Phase 2 and 3 is create a copy of target token you control. It's really good when it's the Knights for History Benalia, by the way. Phase 4, creatures you control get 1/1 and vigilance until the end of the turn. Once you start stacking up multiple sagas and they start to kind of work together, things get kind of cool. So, Intuitive Iteration. 4 mana, return up to 1 target creature or planeswalker to its owner's hand. So if you bounce a planeswalker, you get a draw with this, by the way. If not, it just bounces a creature, which is fine. Phase 2, or Chapter 2, I guess. Return an artifact card from a graveyard to your hand. If you can't, draw a card, so it gets you artifacts back. I wish it said if you choose not to draw a card, because you don't always want to get the artifact back sometimes. But it is what it is. Phase 3, you transform it. Backside is a 3/3 flyer. Whenever you cast a spell, your opponents can't cast spells with the same mana value as that spell until your next turn. So if I cast a 2-drop spell, your opponents can't cast 2 drops until my next turn. It really shuts things off. Does not restrict this to once per turn. If I make infinite mana and I just cast everything in my hand and I don't win the game, my opponents cannot play spells of the same CMC as what I just cast. This is a pretty cool stacks piece. Retreat to Emeria. This also plays off your infinite mana combo. It says landfall, do one of the following, create a 1/1 core ally creature token, or creatures you control get 1/1 until the end of the turn. Smothering Tithe. Does it need any introduction? No. If you don't know, it's whenever an opponent would draw a card, that player may pay 2. If they do not, you create a treasure. The Bath Song. 4 mana, it says draw 2 cards, then discard a card. And that's phase 1 and 2. Or chapter, I guess. Chapter 3 says shuffle any number of target cards from your graveyard into your library and add blue to your mana pool. Really good, actually. The Passage of Zhalfir. Another... Oh, I'm sorry. Some of these have read ahead, and I completely forgot about that. Passage of Zhalfir has read ahead. I don't know if I passed any other ones with read ahead, but so read ahead says I can start on whatever chapter I want. So chapter 1 and 2 says another target permanent phases out. It can't phase in for as long as you control phasing of Zhalfir. Phase 3, destroy all creatures. For each creature destroyed this way, its controller creates a 2/2 black Phyrexian creature token. Time and Ice, tap target creature an opponent controls. It does not untap during its controller's untap step for as long as you control Time of Ice. Return all tapped creatures to their owner's hand on phase 3. Cathar's Crusade, we're making a bunch of tokens and stuff, so we want to go big. Elspeth Conqueror's Death, exile target permanent an opponent controls with converted mana to 3 or greater. Chapter 2, non-creature spells your opponent's cast cost 2 more to cast until the end of the turn. Chapter 3, return target creature or planeswalker from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a 1/1 counter on it or a loyalty counter. Battle at the Hell Vault. For each player, exile up to 1 target non-saga, non-land permanent that player controls until Battle at the Hell Vault leaves the battlefield. That's phase 1 and 2. Chapter 3, create Avacyn, a legendary 8/8 white angel creature token with flying, vigilance, and indestructible. That 8/8 can just win the game, and if I get multiple of these, does really good. Extravagant Replication. 6 mana, blue 4. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that is copy of another target non-land permanent you control. So you should start making copies of your stuff. Works really well. The sagas aren't legendary. You can have multiple of them, and they will just tick until they sack. I didn't mess with the mana base, so you guys do that yourself. I will say you probably want heavy planes in this deck, because like everything that gets you lands gets you planes. So you probably want some heavy planes. And what is the color distribution here? I should give you guys a quick glimpse at that. It's about 50%, and then 37% island and 15% colorless. So if you want to tweak it a little bit, you got any ideas, go for it. I just recommend probably increasing the white if you're going to do anything, and playing more planes than islands. So overall, it's a really cool deck. It is Tameshi story time, part of my 32 deck challenge. So let me know what you guys think of it. Give me any recommendations, comments, concerns. Maybe something doesn't work the way I thought it worked. or whatever. That stuff happens. Magic is a very complex game. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. And this is Remedy X with all things